From the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer. Would you say that your intuitions? Would you say that was your intuition speaking to you? Don't confuse my methods of reasoning with your own. If you want to prove that someone did something, you need three things. Three symbols. Cloak, roses, white hat, a motive, an opportunity to commit the crime, and finally, decisive evidence. If you think these three things through, the answer becomes quite clear. You should have already known that, Phoenix. They didn't teach that to us in school, at least not from what I remember. May I continue now? Matt had to kill Juan no matter what. So would you say that this need came from the press conference? Yes. Do you know why Juan chose that event and that hotel for the conference? Because that was when he could cause the most damage to the public's beloved Matt on guard.
And you knew of this plan, didn't you, Miss Andrews?
Yes, because I was the one who set up the conference and prepared the costume. But I'm sure Mr. Angard himself didn't know anything about the press conference. Oh, really? Can you show me any proof that he didn't know about the press conference? Anyway, the important thing here is that this information was not in your testimony.
Yes, I agree. Miss Andrews, please correct your testimony if you please.
Grasping at straws are we, Mr. Wright? I know what his motive was, but I don't have any way to prove I'm right. Has Mr. Angard done something to hurt or betray you personally? Why do you ask? You were the one who helped Mr. Corrida with his press conference, and that event was supposed to bring down Mr. Angard, yet you still helped out. But the person on the trial right now is Mr. Angard, right? What the witness was thinking, helping the victim with his plan, is none of our concern. In any case, this means that the defendant had a motive to kill. Why do I keep doing this to myself? And he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. But didn't you already testify earlier that Mr. Angard was taking a nap in his room? Are you telling me now that that too was a lie so you could cover him for Mr. Angard? I'm not telling you anything of the sort. When I went to get him for the show, he honestly was sleeping. However, as to whether he was sleeping the entire time, that I cannot say. I was too busy setting up the stage at the time.
I keep trying, but I can find no flaws with what Miss Andrews has said. I can't say the same for some people here in this courtroom, however.
The judge is glaring straight at me. He's glaring at you, smart guy. Oh. My thoughts were confirmed by the evidence, of course, the button and the knife. You can hardly call the knife decisive evidence. The fingerprints on the knife could very well be a clever camouflage. Then, what about the button? The button? It's clear from the crime scene that the victim and his murderer fought, and during the fight, the killer ripped the button from the gem ninja's costume.
You're talking about this button, correct?
That button was found in the pleats of Matt's hakama, isn't that correct? I would think that makes it very decisive evidence.
Looks like you were outfoxed again, Mr. Wright.
Anyway, the knife doesn't prove a thing. Please fix your testimony. I can't stand the sight of a man who can't gracefully accept his defeat. Thank goodness Mia can still look at me. With an icy stare, yes.
Miss Andrews, for Mr. Wright's sake, please add this information to your testimony.
That button was torn off of Juan during his fight with Matt. And how do you know that? When the ends of the threads on the button and the costume were matched up, they were found to fit together perfectly. Or so I heard. I've heard that before too. Why would Miss Andrews know about this case down to such a fine detail? Don't look at me like that, just because I'm prepared and you're not. Arg, and I thought I had her this time for sure. If there's anything to trip her up on, it has to be here, but where and what? But I'm Matt's manager, so I felt that I had to protect him. But what you really did was stab the guy in the back, didn't you? And at the worst possible time. who's to say she really stabbed the guy in the back, as you put it? This witness could have disclosed things about Mr. Angard at any time. Why then would she wait until there was a large audience before doing so? It's the same reason why Mr. Corrida planned such an elaborate conference. Miss Andrews wanted to cause Mr. Angard as much damage as she possibly could. The witness bears ill will towards the defendant. This isn't the Phoenix Wright wax philosophical power hour, and please stop slandering the witness. As I expected, Miss Andrews' testimony seems pretty solid. Really? Because to me it sounded a little wishy-washy. Wishy-washy? Well, I guess we'll see if I press on a little more. You should know this by now, but you'll need strong, decisive evidence to make her talk. Got it, Chief. I'm gonna pin you down this time, Miss Andrews. You know what I'm saying? Oh, alright, I got it now. I got it. Yeah, okay, so the button being torn off wouldn't make sense because of the way he died. He was strangled. This is the victim's autopsy report. Clearly states that the cause of death was strangulation by a scarf. Strangulation. The knife stab to the victim was done after the victim had already died.
And what does that mean?
Let's examine the evidence. This button has the victim's blood on it, which would mean that it was ripped off the costume when after the knife was stabbed into the victim. Exactly. Which means it is impossible that this button was turned off during the victim's final struggle, because the victim was strangled to death in that fight. That's right, Miss Andrews. There's no way that this button was ripped off during the struggle. This button was consciously pulled off the victim's already dead body.
Order! What is the meaning of...
What is the meaning of this, right? So what if the button was torn off the body after the victim had already died? What does that change? Let me ask you one simple question, Miss Edgeworth. Why was the button torn off? What purpose did that serve? What purpose? We now know this button was not torn off during the fight, so the murderer took the time and effort to purposely rip this from the victim's body. That would mean that the murderer had something in mind, wouldn't it?
Mr. Wright, does this mean you know what the murderer wanted to do with this button? What was it?
To have a memento of the crime. Maybe this was the criminal's first crime, and since it went so well, the person wanted something as a memento. Right. I'll give this button to you as a memento. Huh? A reminder to never set foot in another court of law yet again, for as long as you live.
Yes, I think it would be for the best if you stayed away from the attorney's bench.
Wait, please, Your Honor. I'll get it right this time. I'm sure of it.
Mr. Wright, does this mean you know what the murderer wanted to do with this button? What was it?
There is only one logical reason for doing something like that. It was to pin the crime on Mr. Angard.
But
there is no way anyone would put a bloody button in their own pants. That's right. Mr. Angard was set up. By the real killer, of course.
And the real murderer is... Well, Mr. Wright, who in the world is the real killer then?
Finally. I can't believe I managed to bring this trial all the way up to this point. Phoenix, you can't let your guard down yet, not until the very end. The real killer, the person who planned to frame Mr. Angard, is... A.A. Miss Adrian Andrews. I choose you! You are Mr. Corrida's killer!
What? Order, Miss Wright. This is a very grave matter. Do you have any evidence that supports your charge?
Any evidence? All of the evidence points to Miss Andrews.
What? How preposterous. You can't stick any of that on me.
I can't, can I? Would you care to test me?
Then what about this knife?
The knife was used to stab the victim after he had already been strangled to death. It was used to throw suspicion onto Mr. On Guard, naturally. A knife covered in the defendant's fingerprints could be only taken from his room. And the only one who had dinner with him and knew which knife to take was you. Tisk! Then, what about the button that was found in Matt's Hakama? This button was removed from the victim's body after he had already died. The only people who could have done so were the person who found his body, or the killer. However, if Mr. On Guard was the real killer, there is no way he would put it in his pants. Ooh. The only person who could have put this button into Mr. On Guard's Hakama is the person who went to wake him up from his nap, which is you, yet again, Miss Andrews.
I see. What about the empty guitar case?
That is also another piece of evidence that incriminates Miss Andrews. That costume was used to hide the real killer's identity as they fled the crime scene. Now, who could have known that there was just such a costume inside the guitar case? It could only have been the person who prepared the costume for the victim. And that person is you, Miss Adrian Andrews. No,
But Miss Andrews' fingerprints were nowhere to be found in the guitar case.
It was you who proved that she was not wearing gloves at the time.
That's right.
That's because she did not intend on leaving any prints. If anyone had found out that she had touched the case, they would have asked her why. So to avoid leaving any prints, she used a towel or something else to open it. But the glass of the tomato juice is a different story. Miss Andrews purposefully left her fingerprints on the glass to show that, yes, indeed, she was the classic day's discoverer of a dead body. Ah! And to top it all off, there's this photo. A photo of the killer as they exited the scene of the crime. No reasonable person on Earth can believe this Nickel Samurai is Mr. On Guard. He would be much too short for his own costume if it was him. Speaking of how tall people are, Miss Andrews, you're also kind of short in stature, aren't you? Not? But please, stop. I can't stop. Well, how about it, Miss Andrews? I've got her this time.
Miss Andrews?
I refuse to testify. What was that? There's a law. It says I can't be forced to testify about something if you can incriminate me. What?
Well, yes. You are absolutely correct, Miss Andrews. The law does provide us with a way to avoid self-incrimination by allowing a witness to not testify if the testimony can cause damage to themselves.
What? Who made that rule? Pleading the fifth is not something. Oh, pleading the fifth is something most people would think is not something most people would think to do on the spot. Okay, she's pleading the fifth. Actually, thinking back to yesterday in Mr. On Guard's room. Adrian Andrews. Yes? Think hard about what we just discussed. Understood? Alright. That's it. That's when Francesca planted this idea into her head. She must have told Miss Andrews to not testify if things look bad. Did a good job proving everything up to this point, Phoenix, but there's still one thing you haven't done. Something I haven't done. What's wrong, right? Are you finished already? Run out of evidence?
But what is so humorous, Mr. Edgeworth?
I'm sure you realize this as well, Your Honor. But everything the good lawyer here has proven up to this point is meaningless. What? Everything you have proven is circumstantial. Circumstantial? Yes, circumstantial. You have yet to provide a single piece of definitive proof. Proof that Miss Andrews did in fact harbor a wish to murder Mr. Corrida. Uh-oh.
Miss Andrews, did you want to kill Mr. Corrida?
I believe this may lead to me incriminating myself, so I will abstain from answering.
But Miss Andrews, if you do that, it would be the same as admitting your guilt, don't you think?
Maybe so, or maybe not. There's nothing to prove it either way. Besides, you don't even know what crime I could be guilty of. I would be guilty of due to my silence. No, she's taking that defiant attitude again. Mia, what should we do? Somehow, we've landed in the worst possible situation.
I think we have reached a certain conclusion at this point in time. Miss Andrews has refused to testify, and the defense's theory that she is the actual murderer has not been fully substantiated with solid definitive proof.
But that's not true.
In this situation, there's only one thing this court can do, and that is to declare a recess.
Recess?
I request that both the prosecution and the defense look further into this matter. And at tomorrow's trial...
Tomorrow? We don't have it tomorrow. If you don't get a not guilty verdict today, then... Please wait, Your Honor. That's not necessary. The trial... Please continue the trial. What are you sweating for? Your client is getting one more day to live, isn't he? That's not it. This isn't about that. Edgeworth, I know you know who the real killer is. Please, let the trial continue. If I don't get the verdict, then Maya...
But it's impossible to continue as long as the witness refuses to testify. Now then, this court is...
It is not impossible for this trial to continue.
Mr. Edgeworth, what are you...
It's true Miss Andrews holds the right against self-incrimination, however, if the topic of conversation was something unrelated to whatever she may be guilty of, then she has no right to withhold testimony.
Yes, that is very true, but...
Actually, there's one little thing that I'm curious about. Miss Andrews, when you found the victim's dead body, you poured yourself a glass of juice. Yes, and...
I can't
help but to think how unnatural that is. Usually when one finds a body, they are shaken up, not stirred. So my actions were unusual, but I've already... Before you speak, I want to state that if you have a reason behind your actions, I would like you to testify to that effect. Testify? Your Honor, I would like to request that the witness testify again as to what happened when she first discovered the victim's body. Whatever we found out in this testimony should in no way implicate the witness. I don't know what it is about Edgeworth today, but I can't get a good read off of him. Is he a friend or a foe? I just don't know.
The court acknowledges the prosecution's request. Miss Andrews, if you please.
That glass of juice, I didn't really pour it myself. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw it in that messy state. And Juan, he was sitting slumped over and tired looking in the corner. When I saw him sitting like that, the thought that he was dead didn't cross my mind. To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something. So I went to pour him some juice. When I realized that he was dead, that's when I knocked the flower vase over. What?
So you poured that glass of juice for the victim. Why didn't you say so in your earlier testimony?
I didn't think I need to include something so trivial. Felix, please be careful here. If you can't find anything wrong with this testimony, then there's nothing left. I know. Edgeworth, what the heck is going on in that brain of yours?
Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination.
That glass of juice, I didn't really pour it for myself. But there wasn't anyone else in the room, right? Of course not. Then who did you pour it for? Mr. Wright, there's a rhyme and reason for everything. Can you wait just a little longer for it to be revealed to you? In other words, Wright, be quiet and listen. Precisely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw it in that messy state. So, it was a mess. Are you sure it wasn't messy because of your fight with Mr. Corrida? I understand your frustrations in not being able to prove your theory, however, before you go accusing people of crimes, go find yourself some evidence. Grrr. And then, what did you see next, witness? And Juan, he was sitting slumped over and tired looking in the corner. Slumped over? Yes, he was just sitting there with his head tilted forward, eyes closed. He really looked like he was sleeping. Is it just me, or did that right there sound a little odd? When I saw him sitting like that, the thought that he was dead didn't cross my mind. Then what did cross your mind? I thought maybe he had smashed everything up in anger because he lost the Grand Prix, and then felt tired after his rampage, so he decided to take a nap. Anyways, that's what I thought.
I see, so he didn't think he was dead at all.
To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something, so I went to pour him some juice. You thought he fainted? I thought he was asleep at first, but then the room was in such a messy state, I thought maybe he had gotten into a fight with someone.
That's when you went to pour the glass of juice.
Yes, he always has a hard time waking up, so Juan always has a glass of tomato juice to drink.
I see. And after that, what happened next?
When I realized that he was dead, that's when I knocked the flower vase over. And how did you come to realize that he was, in fact, dead? I shook him over and over, but I never got a response. So I set the glass down on the dresser and tried to take his pulse. I was shocked and staggered backward. I knocked the flower vase over, so that's what happened. Yes. This is what it all comes down to. Huh? This is the absolute end for both sides. And Adrian is letting her guard down. Phoenix now is our best chance yet to kill the prosecution's case. Isn't that a bit harsh? Miss Andrews, will you tell us the truth this time? Okay. I think this is pretty simple to explain, right? Just, I would like to direct everyone to the photo right here. If you can tell from this photo that this person is dead, then something is very wrong with you. So you honestly didn't think he was dead when you found him? No, not at all. Even though this is what you saw when you discovered the body.
Ah! What is the meaning of this?
Isn't it obvious, Your Honor? There's a knife sticking straight out of Mr. Corrida's chest. Anyone who saw the scene would have immediately thought that that he was a dead man. What? That's, well, you see, I doubt a single person in the world would mistake this for someone who fainted, and then so nonchalantly go pour something to drink.
Your point is?
Miss Andrews, your testimony just now, it was all one giant lie. And your lie has proven one thing very clearly. That you are the real killer. No!
It looks like the defense has somehow brought the ugly truth to light. The defendant, Mr. Madangard, is not guilty after all.
But that's impossible. You're wrong.
But, Miss Andrews, try to have some composure.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me, I tell you. It was Matt. I swear it. He's the one who killed Juan. But you are the one who refused to testify. And your reason for not doing so was that you might end up incriminating yourself. That's because...
Miss Andrews, I will give you one last chance. What exactly are you hiding that may incriminate you?
I refuse to testify.
Then there is no need for this court to continue any further. Mr. Madangard's innocence has been clearly demonstrated.
Is it over? Have we found the truth at last? What's wrong, Phoenix? Usually the real killer confesses his or her guilt. And now that I think about it, this is the first time someone hasn't.
Now then, I would like to hand down my verdict for Mr. Madangard.
Your Honor, the prosecution feels that it would be premature to pass down a verdict at this time.
What?
The reason is quite simple. This witness has yet to speak the absolute real truth.
The absolute real truth? What are you...
Witness, don't you understand yet? Huh? I don't know who planted this silly idea in your head, but as long as you protect yourself through your silence, Madame God will go free, and in his place, you will become the guilty party. That's a lie. I don't believe you. What? I was told if I spoke, then it would be all over, and Matt would never be declared guilty. What in the world is she talking about? Has she lost it? I can't speak about it. I'm too scared. It's Francesca von Karma. Huh? It's Francesca von Karma. Don't you remember, Phoenix? Miss Andrews lives by grabbing tightly onto the words of another, because she doesn't have the strength to believe in herself. Then, right now, Miss Andrews is... Yesterday, she was tossed a lifesaver by Miss von Karma. Don't say that, no matter what happens. If you do, Madame God will be acquitted. Miss Andrews undoubtedly believes in those words right now, and is clinging onto them. Then what should we do? This is the first time I've ever come across anything like this. But Miss Andrews has to be the killer, right? All we have to do now is get her not guilty. That is my only priority. It wasn't me. I'm begging you, please believe me. I didn't kill Juan. Help, please, someone, help me.
Mr. Wright.
Yes, Your Honor?
The court can't continue on like this, therefore I'd like to hear what you intend to do.
What I intend to do? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? Right, I suggest you think very carefully about this. Think about what this witness did and what she did not do. And think about who is the real mastermind behind this crime. Who's the real mastermind? Isn't that obvious? Someone else who could be, except the woman crying over there, right? Right? Come now, what will you do? What kind of man are you, Mr. Phoenix Wright? Alright, the truth it is, I have to win a complete acquittal today. There's no way around that. But I can't bring myself to do it like this. Not when she's making a face like that. Miss Andrews, I would like to know what you are really hiding.
But, Mr. Wright, are you sure you want to know what... Are you sure you know what you're doing?
Sure, Mr. Ungar would get an acquittal, but in his place, you would be found guilty. Is this how you really want this trial to end? Be quiet. How dare you? You're trying to trick me.
That's enough. I commend you for trying, Miss Edgeworth. However, it's clear that the defense's theory is the truth.
You're wrong. But... What a shame. I had hoped things wouldn't come to this, however...
What is it, Miss Edgeworth?
Miss Andrews, since you absolutely refuse to testify, it falls on my shoulders to disclose this to the court. Stop!
But, Mr. Edgeworth!
This witness, how should I put this? She has an illness.
What?
She has a fever. A fever, Your Honor, and the only cure is more cowbell. And because of this illness, she has tried to commit suicide in the past. Stop! Please stop! No matter how much you want to hide it, it's no use. I have the evidence right here. That's the second part of the suicide report. The attempted suicide report. What will you do now, witness? You know what I am about to do, don't you? I will now reveal to the court the true nature of this pitiful woman known as Adrian Andrews. The secret of her dependent nature. Having other people know about it scares her more than anything else in the world. Please stop. I beg you. If people find out, I'll... If you're going to say you would choose death, that is no concern of me. Edgeworth, how can you be so cold? However, before you die, I'll pull the truth from your still breathing lips. No matter what I have to do. So, will you tell the court yourself, or shall I? Either is fine with me. I'll talk, but please, help me. Nothing matters anymore. Huh. When I first saw him, I really thought he had fainted, honest. When I realized he was dead, that was when I formulated my plan. Once I made sure there was no one in the hallway, I made the dash back to Matt's room. And then I stabbed Juan's body with a knife and ripped off the button. Just when I finished and was returning to Matt's room, I had a bit of an inconvenience. That's why I ended up using the nickel samurai costume.
Stabbed the body with the knife? But why would you do that?
Isn't it obvious to pin the blame on a certain person? A certain cowardly man.
What do you mean by all of this?
It might take this court a little while to understand, but... this is the truth. The real killer's Matt. That scumbag of a man. I'll never forgive him. He's trying to escape his guilt again, just like last time. Last time? So Miss Andrews stabbed the victim, Juan Corrida, in the chest with a knife. However, she didn't do it with murder in mind. She did it with the intent of framing Matt on guard for the murder. And this is her crime. What? How is this possible? I mean, wasn't Miss Andrews supposed to be the real murderer?
Mr. Wright, please get over your shock and commence the cross-examination.
Okay. When I first saw him, I really thought he had fainted, honest. But you could tell from the state the room was in that there must have been a fight. Are you telling me the truth when you say you did not know he was dead? He had a scarf tied around his neck, but that scarf is a part of the Jammer Ninja's costume, so I didn't think anything about it was strange. His head was also tilted down a bit, so I couldn't see his face that well. That's why I thought I'd wake him up and went to pour the juice. When I realized he was dead, that was when I formulated my plan. What is this plan you had? I knew right away the murder was Matt. I knew because Juan, he was going to expose Matt's weakest weak point to the world. So Matt did this to stop Juan and silence him for good. That's when I thought I should forge some evidence and pin this crime on Matt. So the forged pieces of evidence were the knife and the button. First thing that came to mind was to plant the knife. Once I made sure there was no one in the hallway, I made a dash back to Matt's room. That was so you could get the knife, correct? The knife Matt used at dinner had his fingerprints all over it. I thought if I used that, then the police would certainly turn their eyes towards him. Matt was napping with his costume on at the time. I slipped in, took the knife, and returned to the scene of the crime. And then I stabbed Juan's dead body with a knife and ripped out the button. So you were the one that stabbed the victim with a knife. It gives me goosebumps to think about it now, but what a horrible thing I did. But at the time, I couldn't control my own body. It moved on its own. Then, when I stabbed Juan's dead body, I suddenly realized something. If I used the button somehow, I could make Matt look even more suspect. So you thought to rip one of the buttons off and then plant it in Mr. Angard's hakama. Yes, that's what I had planned to do. But things never go that smoothly, do they? Just when I finished and was returning to Matt's room, I had a bit of an inconvenience. An inconvenience? There was a woman with a camera at the ready, loitering in the hallway. I'm willing to bet my spikes it was Lara. There was also a woman with a ray gun at the ready, pacing back and forth. That's Miss Allback for you. I had already been caught and made into a big scoop for a certain weekly tabloid once, so I couldn't very well go out looking like myself and get caught again. And that's why I ended up using the nickel samurai costume. You were the one who prepared that costume, weren't you? Yes, I took it from Global Studios. I also put it into Juan's guitar case the day before the awards ceremony. You did this in preparation for the press conference, correct? Yes, Juan wanted to wear that costume and hold a press conference in it. He was going to disclose Matt's biggest secret there.
And what is his secret?
That, I don't know. Anyway, I thought that if I were to leave Juan's room in the Nickel Samurai costume, then people would think that Matt was the real murderer. I was very careful not to leave any fingerprints when I opened the guitar case. I absolutely did not want anyone to know about the costume.
I think we've heard enough. So, after that, you went back to Mr. On-Guard's room and planted the button.
Into Matt's Hakama? Yes. After that, I folded up the costume I was wearing and put it into a bag. Then I stuck it out of the hotel and got rid of it.
My word! What does all this mean?
Mr. Edgeworth, is it? The real criminal is Matt On-Guard. Yesterday, that woman prosecutor sat me down for a talk. Francesca, huh? She said that I should, under no circumstances, confess to what I had done. That if I just kept quiet, then Matt would be found guilty for sure. I had no choice but to believe in her words.
What this witness has done is clearly unlawful. However, as long as her testimony stands, you can be certain she is not the real killer.
Wait, Your Honor. The defense still...
Right?
It's pointless. At this point in time, it is not possible to indict Miss Andrews on anything.
Yes, exactly. There isn't a single piece of evidence that points to her as a murderer. The cross-examination of this witness is over, and so is today's trial. You can establish that the witness was the culprit. Please let it go, Mr. Wright.
But I can't let it go.
Mr. Edgeworth, please place Miss Andrews under arrest for further questioning.
Understood, Your Honor. The prosecution will arrange for her detention immediately.
That is all. Court is adjourned for today. See ya!
Today's trial, it's over. I didn't win an acquittal. Witness, would you mind if I ask you something? Edgeworth? What is it? Before you leave court today, I wondered if I might look at one thing. A card in your hand. It's had my interest for quite some time now. What exactly is it? Oh, this? Mr. Wright also asked about this. Although I didn't remember at the time you asked me about it, Mr. Wright, I remembered just now. I found this in the room on that day.
The room?
That day? Yes. I found this card when I discovered Juan's body. It was lying there right next to him. You found that card next to the victim's body? I suppose I must have unconsciously slipped it into my pocket. But it's not as if this card has any relevance to Juan's murder, right? Yeah, I guess not, but still a strange card, if you ask me. But as far as a clue to this case, I don't see why...
Witness, that card! Give it to me! Hurry!
Edgeworth?
Do you have any idea what you have stupidly yet inadvertently done? I can't believe you hid this from me all the time.
I didn't mean to... What is this all about? I've never seen Edgeworth so emotional before. That card, what in the world is it? And what does it mean? I guess we'll never know. To be continued. Until next time.